With all that's going on in the world, it's interesting how many of us are suffering from being unable to sleep, lack of sleep, getting up too early, all kinds of problems sleeping because of the stress that we're under. But we may be doing some things that are wrong, things that perhaps we're eating or drinking just before we go to bed. And so I've invited Dr. Christy Williamson, who has personalized what she calls medical nutrition and has made it her life's work at the Nutritional Genomics Institute. Welcome, Dr. Christy. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So this is interesting because, you know, in your background as an expert in this kind of nutrition, just before we go to bed, let's take it from the time we go to bed backwards. Let's work the clock backwards. What should and shouldn't we be doing as far as food is concerned and those kinds of things?
All right. So, well, that's kind of a loaded question because at the Nutritional Genomics Institute, we look at pretty much everything. We're going to look at your genes, which are basically your blueprint. We're going to be looking at your metabolomics, which means we're going to be looking at your biochemistry or your metabolism. And then we're going to be looking at your environmental exposures as well. So, you know, what activities you're going to be having, what exposures you've had, all of those types of things. And that combination is what makes up your gene expression. So if we kind of start at the beginning, we do have certain genes that, of course, regulate your gene expression and your circadian rhythm. So we're super creative as scientists, and we call them the clock gene or the period gene. So we're looking at how well that clock goes around in a 24-hour cycle. But if you happen to have, say, impairments in some of those clock genes, you may need to go to bed with the sun and rise with the sun, or maybe not eat so much saturated fat. So things like that really are kind of personalized or very personalized. But let's just say, for instance, you do have this clock gene. You would need to get up pretty early. So you'd need to get up with the sun. And then if you were going to have some caffeine, then you would need to have it in the morning. Of course, if you are a caffeine metabolizer, we could talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah.
But there's stimulating foods that you could have that have either catecholamines or methyl donors is what we call them. And then, you know, as you kind of go through the day, you want to make sure your workouts in the morning. You want to make sure you don't work out too close to bedtime, that sort of thing. And then there's all kinds of things that you want to do before you go to bed. I see you're here in a bedroom. There's certain things. The bedroom should be for sleeping and sex. That's it. You need to make sure there's no TV in there. I don't see a TV in that room anywhere, which is a good thing. Stay away from all this fabulous blue light that we have, and make sure that there's all kinds of things. I could go on. I know we're going to have lots of other questions about this.
Well, the question that I have for you, Chrissy, is may I call you Chrissy? I know.
Of course. Yes, Chrissy's fine.
Is the fact that a lot of us do nightcaps. So we'll have a dinner and then we'll have a nightcap just before we go to bed. What does that do to the brain? What does that do to your sleep?
Sure. So as I mentioned, catecholamines. So it's going to increase your dopamine levels. Okay. And so dopamine, of course, makes us happy. Yeah. But in a cruel twist of fate, dopamine turns into adrenaline, there's a more scientific word for that. It's epinephrine. But adrenaline is what we mostly understand. So, if you have genetic impairments in the way that your body breaks down adrenaline, which, spoiler alert, most people do, then you're not going to sleep very well. You're basically going to feel really good and get kind of sleepy when you have that little bit of bourbon or whatever it is right before you go to bed. And then a couple of hours later, usually about 2:00 in the morning, you're going to wake up because all of a sudden your body's taken all that wonderful, beautiful, happy dopamine and turned it into adrenaline.
Wow.
So some people even wake up with a pounding heart rate in the middle of the night, and then they go, "Oh, I just have to get up and go to the bathroom." But that's not really what happens.
Oh, that's interesting. So let's take, so that's one thing to take away. What about supplements? A lot of people are now doing melatonin because they're so stressed. They need something to calm down and they use melatonin. What about supplements?
So it's interesting. So there's supplements that help you fall asleep, and then there's supplements that help you stay asleep. Your herbals are basically that calmative sort of thing. So your theanine or your ashwagandha, your passion flower, your lavender, those types of things, those are the things that help you kind of chill out. Those are the things that you should take maybe an hour or two before bedtime instead of that nightcap. And those are the things that you should actually take together. They work better synergistically. So when you talk to herbalists, master herbalists, that's what they teach you, is that that's how those things work the best. And then there are other things that help you stay asleep. And when we're looking at these major pathways, so the tryptophan pathway, so, I'm a biochemist and a doctor of nutrition, and then a certified nutrition specialist. So I'm a big pathway geek. I geek out on all this fun stuff because that's where all the genes live, are in the pathways. But tryptophan basically turns into serotonin, and then serotonin turns into melatonin. And so that's really where we're looking to start supplementing things like 5-HTP, which is the precursor to serotonin. So that's a supplement that a lot of people take. And then taking melatonin as well. That's the end product. But I actually want to ask you, Carlos, have you ever taken something like melatonin or 5-HTP and woken up and had the opposite response?
I actually have responded that way exactly.
Really?
It's somehow in a weird way, if I drink coffee at night, it puts me to sleep. Melatonin has done the same thing to me.
All right.
Melatonin has woken me up.
Woken you up.
Yeah,
right.
So it does the opposite thing.
Most people don't realize that there is another feedback loop, and that's a fancy biochemical way of saying that there's an alternate pathway. It's called the chironin pathway. But for people that are really tired and trying to take things like melatonin, there's another tryptophan pathway that makes something called clenolinate, which is a neurotoxic metabolite in the brain. So if you have this odd response to supplementation that's supposed to make you sleep, that means that you're tired because either you have hormone imbalance or thyroid imbalance or gut dysbiosis. And so there's something else that's interfering with that alternate tryptophan pathway. And so your clinician basically needs to put on their clinician hat and kind of dig in and figure out what that is.
Who do people go to? I mean, this is some really technical stuff, especially the genomics part. Who do people go to? And there's lots of sleep experts and things that we can Google, but I'm sure we could go on your website and find some information out. But does your local doctor help you in this regard at all?
So certified nutrition specialists are actually very well trained in this type of information. So the American Nutrition Association certifies these types of nutritionists. They have advanced training in biochemistry. And then of course, a doctor of clinical nutrition has even more advanced training. It's sort of a blend between a clinical degree, like a naturopathic physician, and a PhD. So that's actually what I am. So those are the types of clinicians that you should seek out if you're looking to find this type of information. Nutritional genomics practitioners, those are brand new. I'm trying to teach physicians how to do that. So that's what we do at SnipEd, which is one of my companies.
All right. We're getting near the end here, and I just want one simple, easy idea from you. I won't call it a tip, but that will help me relax just before I need to get to sleep. What should I or shouldn't I do that will help me get to sleep and stay asleep?
Okay. Well, so just one. Okay. One of my favorite food tricks is dark cherries. Okay. So dark cherries have, and it sounds crazy, but dark cherries have high amounts of melatonin, tryptophan, polyphenols, potassium. Okay. So if you're going to reach for something to eat right before you go to bed, grab a handful of dark tart cherries. Okay. So instead of anything else, that would be my choice. Okay. So we have studied dark cherries very extensively, and they do pack quite a punch in terms of having all of those other things. Now, if we're going to, can I just squeeze in one other thing in terms of the supplement? Okay. So something called magnesium threonate. So this is my end all be-all favorite of supplements to help people sleep. Because remember, I was talking about those catecholamines having too much adrenaline in your body.
Yeah.
Almost everybody has too much adrenaline. We've had a stellar year or so. But genetically, a lot of people have impairments in the way that their bodies break things down. And so we have what we call ruminating anxiety, or just, you lay in your bed and you think about, gosh, what did so-and-so say at the office the other day? And you can't really turn it off. And so your brain is just thinking about it. Magnesium threonate works on that enzyme. It's called COMT, or catecholmethyltransferase. It's amazing. Okay. So this is my end all be all favorite. And a lot of the foods that we look at also have magnesium in them. So if we had to pick something, dark cherries and magnesium threonate, sleep like a baby.
Dr. Christy Williamson, that is genius stuff. Thank you so much. I feel relaxed already.
Good. Wonderful. It was really great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice talking with you. Thanks so much.